Reality. He faced challenges in his life. Eli was born in 1922, only 7 years before the Great Depression of 1929 hit. His father lost the family jewelry business, and it led to strong tensions in the home and dissension between husband and wife. They wound up running a rooming house where sometimes the family ate last and the boarders ate first. Eli met his wife Tina when they were in high school. They continued their courtship despite the opposition of her family and her parents, sometimes meeting secretly at Steak and Shakes and other locations. They were married against her family's wishes, but they were together for the rest of Tina's life. Eli was drafted into the Army, which made him travel around quite a bit, but he wound up in medical school at Creighton in Nebraska. He looked back on it as a time that he had to teach himself everything, even though others might have seen Creighton as a very good medical school at the time. When he went back to Chicago, he served in his internship at Mount Sinai and his residency at Michael Reese Hospital, where again there was a disappointment. He was not offered the position he expected. He wound up starting his own practice. And so he faced challenges, but understand the reality is not the challenge you face, it's how you deal with those challenges. And despite all of those challenges, he became the second reality. He was a skilled psychoanalyst and therapist. He had a great intellectual understanding of the basic issues. He did things right in the clinical and teaching settings. Hear the glowing testimonies of the people who studied with him and who trained under him and learned from him. Hear from the patients, sometimes over many, many years, who were very loyal to him and very dedicated to him as he was to them. He was so patient and so committed to seeing them get better. Now, he did not always follow the establishment route in his profession for a variety of reasons. But near the end of his life, there was a plaque put on the wall where he donated his library of books that summed it up. It referred to him as a gifted therapist, a cherished supervisor and mentor. Not simply someone who knew what he was doing, but who shared how he did what he did with others to help more people. A reality. Eli was a challenging personality at times. He had a strong personality, and let's say it was less managed inside the family than out in public. What he said was what happened, and that would be what would be. Richard told me a story that Eli wanted him to start Hebrew school. Richard wasn't convinced that he wanted to do it. And so Eli said, well, why don't you try it for a year and we'll see if you like it. He did it for a year. He did not like it. And so at the beginning of the second year, he said, I don't want to go back. Eli said, well, you started it, so now you have to finish it. At times, his response to I love you was thank you, although he grew past that in later years. And there were certainly challenges in his partnership with Tina. They saw themselves as lovebirds at times, but there were issues of depression and dependence between the two of them. And her sudden death in 1987 was a very challenging moment for him. Again, is it who we are or who we become? Philip told me that Eli grew tremendously over the last 20 years. He learned from his past, and he understood where he had made mistakes as a father and as a husband, and he tried hard to do the right thing. Harriet was very good for him in this respect. Her care and her support certainly gave him extra years of life, but her love and her encouragement enabled Eli to grow as well and deepen his relationship with his sons and even with grandchildren. Reality. Eli Lane was a brilliant and very cultured man. He devoured the New York Times. He loved the opera. He loved traveling the world before his health made that too difficult. And of course, his love of music. In fact, it was one of Harriet's qualifications when they first got together, was that she had her CSO tickets. He had an active social life with other couples and a very strong sense of humor. We cannot escape today without hearing the Mozart joke. Two people were traveling on a bus, and one of them said, "Did you hear Mozart last night?" And the other said, "I just saw him on the number 7 bus going down to the beach." The first person says, "You idiot. Everyone knows the number 7 doesn't go to the beach." Now, that's not how Eli would have told it, because he never would have gotten through the joke. He found it so funny himself that he would laugh his way, and you couldn't get the punchline because he enjoyed it. Philip told me that he remembers all these stories of people saying, "Eli knows so much about," and then fill in the blank. It was a sign of how respected he was in their circle of friends for all that he knew and he had learned through the dint of self-effort. The most important reality today is that Eli Lane is gone. And part of the tragedy that we feel today is that we feel as if we will not create any new memories of him. We think that who he was is all that he will be. But the truth is that there are many sides to reality or to any one person, and each of us experiences each other differently. Once upon a time, psychoanalysis was called the talking cure. Someone was sick, they had an ailment. You did not treat them by medication or by physical therapy. You communicated. You talked to each other as people, and by talking, they felt better. In our grief at the loss of Dr. Eli Lane, we need the talking cure. We need to talk to each other, to learn from each other, to share stories of his insights and wisdom, and we will prove yet again that the talking cure still works. But for the moment, sometimes loss is beyond words, and into that space, music plays a role. And so it would be inappropriate to remember Eli's life without involving music in the observance. And so before we hear the speakers from his life, I would like to invite us to reflect for a few moments on a piece of beautiful music that he would have loved, the Adagio for Organ and Strings by Albinoni.